to today's live Q&A here at Parenting Academy. Today we're going to talk about what to do when your child completely loses it. How to stay calm, be heard, and actually help them in that moment. So, I guess without further ado, let's just get into it. Have you ever felt like nothing you say actually gets through to your child, or like no matter what you do, nothing stops the meltdowns or the big emotional blowouts that your child has? Like, it's almost like your child turns into a complete different person the moment that things don't go their way. And if you've ever found yourself saying, I don't know what to do anymore, or everything I say just makes things worse, it's not because you're doing something wrong. It's because in those moments, your child's brain is actually in survival mode. And what they need isn't correction or advice or punishments or threats or yelling and screaming. What they actually need is regulation. And here's the good news that you can learn simple strategies to help your child regulate in those moments right away. You can implement them as soon as you get off this call. And that's exactly what I'm going to walk you through today. I'm going to show you how to be the one person in the room where who can create that calm in the middle of that kind of like chaotic moment. And one thing that parents and caregivers always tell me is, I just want something that works because we've tried everything. We've tried discipline, reasoning, rewards, consequences, all of it. And still, the big emotional reactions or the big blowouts happen when they seem in that moment like they are not warranted. So, by the end of today, you will know exactly why your child explodes, even when they were fine like 2 minutes ago. You'll know what works and what doesn't during a meltdown or a big emotional reaction, what backfires, what to do, what not to do. You'll also leave with a simple step by step roadmap on what to do next time things escalate this way. And you'll walk away feeling more confident that next time this happens, you have the right tools to manage that moment. So, the first thing to know about when your child is in a big emotional meltdown, emotional state like yelling, cussing, slamming doors, screaming, crying, any of those big emotional reactions, is that in the moment it might feel rude or disrespectful to you. But it's important to know that they're not being manipulative, that they're not being dramatic. What is actually going on with them is a lot deeper than just wanting to be disrespectful or dramatic. Their nervous system is completely overwhelmed and shut down. It's like their brain hits a panic button and they just go in a mode where they do everything they can to protect themselves from whatever the threat is or the perceived threat is. In this case, it's usually something that somebody said, something you're telling them they didn't do. Whatever the situation is, what they're trying to do is protect themselves from that. This is a reaction from their brain, not a logical part of what they want to do. Think of it like a pressure cooker. There is only so much steam that it can hold before there's too much and it has to let it out. It's the same with the nervous system. There's only so much that it can hold before it just explodes and lashes out. So when they're crying, screaming, cussing, slamming doors, yelling at you, saying, I don't want to, all those things and those big emotions alike, it's not a discipline issue, it's a regulation issue. It's so important to understand. Their brain is not processing the way yours is processing or the way mine is processing in that moment. It's not hearing logic. It is not thinking about consequences or analyzing what could happen if. None of that is happening. It's just trying to get away from whatever the threat is. So, even sometimes when you speak calmly, the words that you use, so your choice of words, feel like pressure. Let's go back to the cooker. When it's too much pressure, you wouldn't add more pressure because it will probably going to a big boom, right? So it's the same with words. Your choice of words, if they feel or seem to your child like they're adding pressure, for example, you're not trying hard enough, or I told you to do this and you didn't do it. I told you to turn that off like 10 minutes ago and you didn't. You didn't finish your work. Any of that, even if you say it in a calm tone of voice, the choice of words adds pressure, which can actually fuel the fire and push them even further to the edge instead of actually bringing them down to to a calm state. And I know that you're probably thinking already, like, okay, if I LME, if I don't discipline them now, they're never gonna learn, or they're always gonna do this, or are you really telling me that I need to allow them to disrespect me? That is not at all what I'm saying. Remember that when your child is in a meltdown or a big emotional reaction, their brain is completely offline. They are not in a state where they can think, they can reason, or they can learn. It's like you literally trying to send an email when your computer is shut off. You know you can't do it. You cannot send that email. So it's the same way. Your child is not ready to learn, to reason, and to think. So I know it's tempting to want to reason in the moment with them, and you may want to say things that are actually like factually true, like they didn't turn off the TV or they didn't do what they you told them to do. All of that could be true, but it is not about logic in that moment. It's about regulation. Especially true if your child is argumentative and opposing you in what you're saying, even though it is not true. So, for example, if you are saying, you didn't turn off the TV when I told you to do so, and your child says, I did, even though they know that they didn't, and it is factually true that they didn't, the fact that they're trying to argue with you, that's actually a cry for connection as opposed to a need to be defiant. They're really trying to be heard and connected to you instead of just trying to oppose you to be disrespectful. So it is literally like trying to give somebody a map when to like get out of being lost while they are out drowning at sea. You didn't give them the map, or they can't use it until they're back on earth, like on shore, right? So that they can look at the map. So instead of wanting to fix it right away in the moment, what we want to do is regulate it. And again, this does not mean that you're letting go of the boundary or that you will allow them to disrespect you. It just simply means that in the moment you're going to give them what they want to and address the issue at a different time when they're actually ready to listen to you and when they're actually able to take in that information. Okay? So let's talk about what not to do during this big emotional reactions or those meltdowns. We don't want to lecture, scold, or explain or try to add any type of reasoning to the moment. We don't want to match their energy by raising the voice at the same level as they are. We don't want to talk the same way they are talking. We want to stay calm and collected. We don't want to use complex instructions. So you don't want to say like, go turn off your TV, go clean your room. I told you to do that 10 minutes ago. None of that. That again will add to the fire. And we definitely don't want to physically restrain unless it's absolutely necessary, like life or death, for safety. Other than that, any of those actions will actually escalate the child, not because they are wrong, just because they are the wrong tools in that moment. Those are tools that we could use at a different time, but just not in that super escalated, super big emotional reaction. And again, I want to be extra clear that this does not mean that you are giving up on your expectation or that you won't address it. It's a matter of time. You will address it, but just not right now, not in the peak of an escalation. Um, Parents often are resistant to let go of control in fear that their child is going to overrun them or that they're going to have control over them. But let's think about it for a second. The situation is already out of control. Your kid is screaming, crying, kicking, cussing you out, slamming doors. It's already out of control. So engaging in similar reactions is not helpful to them or to you to get the outcome that you're trying to achieve, which is to calm your child down and to stop those behaviors from happening in the future. So taking a different approach is actually what is required to see different results than what you're actually looking for. So now that we understand kind of like why and what not to do, what should we do instead, right? Let's talk about what are the steps that you need to take in order to achieve those outcomes, what to do instead of the yelling, punishing, um, timeouts, screaming, all of those battles. So the first step is always to keep everyone safe, right? We want to move people and objects out of the way. If your child is throwing, we want to make sure that any breakables are out of the way. If possible, without again physically restraining, you can guide your child out of the room or into a space where there is like less risk for harm to themselves or to anybody. Um, you can put soft objects like pillows in between like walls or things if they're like hitting or slamming a door, things like that, just to minimize risk. And step number two is back to the pressure cooker. You don't want to add pressure. You actually want to put it on slow release. Pause the pressure. Don't talk or really try to reason with them in that moment, because this is those moments where it feels like nothing you say actually gets through, or everything that you say makes it worse. It's because you're adding pressure as opposed to taking it away. Even if you are right, even if you are correct, just give it space. Maybe 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes of silence will do so much more than you can ever hope for as a result if you were yelling or screaming or talking back with them. Step number three is to validate their emotions and their frustrations, even if you don't agree. So, saying things like, I see that you're really upset, or it sounds like this is really frustrating. I get it. Technology sometimes will make me want to throw things too. If you validate, this is where we fill in that need when they are crying for connection instead of like being defiant. You hear them, you validate them, and so they feel heard and seen, and they're more likely to open up to regulation if they feel heard and seen and connected to you. Step number four is to regulate through presence. What this means is that you stay present in the room with a low tone, slow movement, steady, not a lot of words. You're simply present, showing them that you can hold that space for them to feel that way, and that you don't fear them feeling that way. It is okay to feel that way. You can say things like, I'm here, you're safe, let me know when you're ready, and just stay steady in the room. This is a lot of the times where parents and caregivers get a little bit impatient because they're like, okay, well, I'm here. Come on, like, get out of it. I'm showing you that I validate your feelings. But what we need is to show them with time and presence that we will hold that space for as long as needed. This is very important moment to not give up in that moment. And then you wait for readiness. You don't want to, again, you don't want to snap them out. You being there, telling them that you hear them, you validate their feelings, and you're showing them your calm presence. You don't want to rush them because that could re-trigger them. Instead, be patient, hold the space, and stay calm and stay steady, and they will eventually show you that they're ready to come out to help them regulate. Step number six is to actually ground and redirect. So once you see those readiness signs of what readiness means, or what the signs look like, is that they're actually making more eye contact with you. They might get closer physically with you. They have stopped all of the yelling, the arguing, the kicking, the high, really emotional like behavior displays that they have. So kicking, hitting, any of that has stopped. and they seem like they want to like connect with you, but they just kind of like don't know how. All of those are signs that they are ready. In those moments is where you can prompt them or help them come out of their little shell and support them coming out to you. That is how we kind of like redirect them. We can offer a calming strategy like, why don't you come sit here with me? I have a blanket for you. Do you want to watch something with me? Something like that. This is not the moment to go back to the lesson yet. We are still working through regulation and redirection. So, no lesson yet. We're still just connecting with them. And then step seven, which is the last part, is to actually teach them later. Wait until they are fully calm, until you guys have engaged in different activities or you've done something else, and really revisit what happened. Just ask, like, earlier, we really had a really hard time. Tell me, what happened? What did you need from me? How could I have helped you? And have them open up to you to tell you how things could go differently in those moments. And then you guys can talk about a plan moving forward should that happen again. And these are our 7 steps of what to do in those moments of like big emotional reactions, big meltdowns. And the last thing I want to leave with you before I open up for questions are actually some questions that you can use to ask yourself and reflect on some areas that can be areas for improvement for you as a parent or as a caregiver. So, things to ask yourself are, am I trying to teach while they are drowning? Is this a meltdown, or are we still in meltdown, or are we in meltdown recovery? Do I want to be right, or do I want to be effective? What would help my child feel safe in this moment? Is this meltdown or big emotional reaction about disrespect, or is it about regulation? And how can I shift my reacting to actually responding and proactively being prepared for those occasions? Remember that you are not powerless, you are not failing, and you are not alone. Every time that you stay calm, that you stay regulated, and you choose those moments of connection over correction, it actually builds your child's trust in you over time, to the point that those moments become less and less frequent. And that's when you actually see the real change happen. So, with that, I'd like to open up the floor to see what questions we got in today. Alec, if you don't mind helping me with that.
Yeah, so I got one. So when do we reinforce consequences?
Yeah, so consequences, like I said, is a matter of time. Consequences we will use after the fact. So once we have regulated and we have gotten that child to be in a place where they can learn, we can still tell them like, okay, let's talk about it. What happened? That was really hard. You didn't turn off your TV, and I understand that you were upset and all of that. However, we still need to follow directions. So for now, we are not going to have TV for whatever your consequence was established prior to. So you is still implemented, just not in the time when they are super escalated or super upset.
I got another question that came in. How do you evaluate um, what consequence to give based on the meltdown?
So it that that's a great question. Great question. What we want to actually establish, and this is like prior to, this would be a good time for everybody who has those questions in terms of consequences, because I'm assuming if you're here, you're listening to this, there's no meltdown or big emotional reaction happening. You want to evaluate your consequences before the meltdown happens. So you don't want to establish an unexpected consequence after the meltdown just because they got into the meltdown. So, what I mean is this: if your child engages in a meltdown or a big emotional reaction, and because of that, you say, okay, because you did that, you're losing your screen time for today, that's not appropriate because that is unexpected. You're actually punishing them for engaging in that reaction, which is out of their control. You want to talk about consequences prior to any of this happening and be very clear about your expectations. So if you want screens to be off by 8 o'clock, if you want all of the chores being done before they go play outside, if you want their homework to be done before they go play outside, establish all of those in a neutral environment and make them known and clear to the child before you establish any of those consequences.
Okay, I'm looking to see. How do you, one parent was asking, how do you figure out what triggers meltdown? So she says she has a 4-year-old, and figuring out what's causing the meltdown sometimes is feels like it comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, great question. That's very common that sometimes the meltdowns feel like they come out of nowhere or the big emotional reactions. It is truly dependent on each child. What I would recommend is that you observe and that you actually take note. What happens right before the meltdown happens, and also anything that could be relevant. So, for example, think about it when you are tired, or when you didn't sleep, didn't have a good night, or when you're hungry. You're more likely to feel more irritable, less tolerable. So all of those things apply to your child. Keep a note of, okay, he didn't eat as much today, or he woke up 3 times today, and see if over time you see some patterns that you can recognize based on your observations.
We have another parent asking about patience. The question is honestly, or it's not even a question, it's really kind of like a statement. Honestly, I don't have patience for this every day since the meltdowns happen so frequently. Is it really even possible to stay calm when your child is constantly yelling in your face? Question mark.
Totally a fair question. I totally understand that in those moments, it's easy to feel a trigger. One of the things that I actually often talk to parents about is that just like I'm talking about the nervous system for your child, it is also true for you. So a lot of the times when a big meltdown or a big um, emotional reaction happens, what happens with your nervous system is that your nervous system also thinks of that as a threat, which is why your nervous system takes it as like, oh my gosh, I need to fix it. I feel severely dysregulated. So it's important for parents to know that their tantrums and their meltdowns and their big emotional reactions are not yours. So in that moment, reminding yourself, like, it's okay, I am safe. It is calm. I am calm. This is not my emotion. It will actually help you feel a lot less triggered in those moments. And I'm not disregarding the frequency that they happen. Of course, I'm not saying you have to be perfect. This is just a strategy that has been successful with a lot of parents that I've worked with, to just take a step back and remind yourself that that is not your emotion, so that your nervous system doesn't take it in as such. And with time, it's kind of like going to the gym. You build a muscle. It's a muscle that you have to strengthen to feel more and more confident that you can manage those. The more that you manage them, the less that you will see them, I promise you.
We have another one that says, I try to stay calm, but my partner doesn't handle meltdowns the same way. How do I keep things consistent without arguing in front of the kids?
That is a great question. Interestingly enough, there was just to add to the importance of why it's so important for partners to be on the same page and to definitely not argue, at least in the moment. There was a big study done on how arguing in the moment between partners creates the emotional reactions even bigger for the children by like a crazy percentage, like 30% even bigger in the child's emotional reaction by just watching the parents or the caregivers argue. So, super important to make sure that at least you get on the same page with your partner about eliminating those things that add fuel to the fire. The most important thing that I recommend parents focus on when there is a big emotional reaction or a meltdown is actually stopping it, right? You don't want to continue it. So, anything that will add to the fire, which includes arguing with your partner, you want to eliminate. So I would recommend talking to your partner and really making a commitment that you guys will not engage in that, at least in those moments. Even if you disagree, in how you are handling it, you can agree that you can take that to a different time. Now, how to get on the same page about staying calm and consequences, definitely I would recommend again, um, really talking to your partner and make a commitment so that you guys can align on your same responses. Um, Again, consequences are not out of the picture. None of this means that you are not establishing boundaries. None of this means that you're a doormat for your child. None of that. It just means that you are being the bigger person as the parent and choosing when to do that in a way that is effective.
We got another one that says, if we don't set consequences right away, won't my child just think they can get away with it?
No, not at all. They will not think that they can get away with it because, again, your child, if the consequences don't happen right in that moment, your child is not learning regardless. So, no matter what consequence you're implementing right now, it's your child is not learning from that consequence because their brain is not available to learn. So, that is not what we're teaching them. What we're teaching them is actually, hey, I'm here for you. And I know you're having a difficult time with this emotion or this situation, and I'm going to help you through it because I'm here for you and I love you. I'm still going to establish my consequence, just not right now, at a time that you actually can listen. And actually, a question that I would encourage you to ask yourself is this: if you are implementing consequences in the moment, how are they working for you? Are they working? Are you still seeing the behaviors still happening? And if they are still happening, or if those consequences are not working, then they go to my point that those consequences are not being effective for what you're trying to teach.
So we have another one that says, my child screams and hits me when I say no screen time. I try to stay calm, but I never know what to do next. Any thoughts or advice? Should I just ignore it or step in?
Definitely. Great question. For like kidding, particularly to like adults and things like that, I would definitely remove like calmly. Like if he's hitting you, I don't know if you're at their eye level, how old your child is, but like if they're able to get to you, I would gently block and be like, I need to keep my body safe and I need to keep you safe. That is my job. No hitting is allowed, still no screen. So hold the boundary that hitting is not allowed, that it is okay for them to feel that way, but that hitting is not okay. And then remove yourself because that more likely will escalate them a little bit. And then again, going back to the boundary or the expectation, I would establish it prior to. A lot of the times when these big emotions happen, because they're told no, it's because they're unexpected. It's kind of like if you've ever had a boss who you never knew what you were going to get with them. You come to the office and they're like, they're in a good mood or they're in a bad mood. You don't know what expectations to have. What do they want when you're doing the right thing, when you're not? It's the same for your child when they don't know when unexpectedly you're going to say no to that screen time, especially if you're variable. So I would make it a routine that you tell them from 3 to 5, you can have your screen time. After dinner, there's no screen time, and hold that boundary tight. With consistency over time, they'll fight you less on it.
We got another one that says, do you do this when your child loses it in public places? Is this the same steps?
Yes, definitely. Particularly in public places, because we want to de-escalate as quickly as possible. And the fastest way to de-escalate is through regulation. And the only thing that I would add, of course, is safety, although it is our first step, but be even more aware of that safety because in community environments, children can run away. There's like busy streets and depending on where you're at, you definitely want to stay tight on that safety on that first step.
Yeah, speaking of safety, there's another one here. It looks like, sorry, it's kind of a long one. It looks like it's a mom's raising a child that has autism, with profound autism. So he has significant needs. And she often experiences meltdowns like transiting, so like driving to school or driving to places, and isn't really too certain what to do in those circumstances because she's driving on the highway. Um, they obviously freak her out in those situations. She's not too sure what to do, so she's asking for any advice.
Yeah, definitely. I can totally understand how that is scary and it can be dangerous. First and foremost, I would recommend that as soon as it is feasible to stop, you stop, because this is sounds like a high risk if your child is thrashing or engaging in those big meltdowns. If they're engaging physically, like trying to hit, kick, thrashing in the car, definitely stop as soon as possible. Those situations, depending on the frequency, sound like crisis, like they really require um, understanding of why the behavior is happening in the first place to get you to like know exactly what to do in those moments. However, I would still recommend, even with autistic children with profound autism, they all crave connection and they all want that connection from you. And regulation is always, no matter what, the first step. So as soon as it is feasible for you to step aside, engage in those regulatory strategies like being present and calm and letting them know that you're there, and then work with your providers or um, seek the help to help you understand really how why the behavior is happening in the first place so that you can see that decrease over time in those particular instances.
We have another one where it seems like there's siblings involved. So it says, I've got I got more than one kid, and when one melts down, the other starts acting out as well. How do I stay calm and handle both of the meltdowns at the same time?
Oh, that is such a great question and such a common occurrence with like siblings and meltdowns. Um, Definitely, you cannot be in two places at once. However, when both things are occurring, you want to make sure that you stay calm. That's the one thing that I recommend everybody across the board, no matter your situation. Do work on whatever would help you to actually stay calm. Again, whether you take a step back, whether you repeat those like things to you of like I am safe, take a deep breath. The calmer that you remain, the more, if you didn't do anything else, literally nothing else other than staying calm, it will have a significantly higher ripple effect on both of your children than if you did anything else. So I would recommend that you simply stay calm and try to address each of them individually as much as you can, but just stay calm. And that will help a lot more than anything else you can do for both of them at once.
Here's another one, kind of similar to the driving one. It says her son's getting to the age that he's physically a lot bigger than she is. I'm assuming this is a mom. And she's not too certain what to do since typically his meltdowns include hitting and self injurious behaviors. And she's afraid of getting hurt because she's gotten hurt in the past, trying to interfere, tried to redirect him in other places. So she's curious as to like what your thoughts are on how to handle those situations.
Yeah, that's also a great question, especially when kids get bigger. I see this a lot with parents when kiddos transition from being like little and being able to be handled basically physically, like being picked up, put in a different place. And then they get bigger and now they're bigger than you and they're stronger than you. And in those situations, it can definitely be scary to feel like, a little bit of fear that you are going to get hurt and how to redirect them appropriately. um, Again, I definitely would recommend that we don't try to fuel the fire. So, any of the things that I mentioned about the don'ts, like don't scold, don't try to tell them what they did wrong, don't try to physically restrain them, don't try to do any of that because that will add to the fuel. And what's going to happen is that they're going to fight or flight even more. So, we want to hold a space where they can contain whatever is happening. So in those moments, again, follow safety, remove yourself or guide your child without vocal. So guide them by grabbing a soft pillow and just like move your body with them to get them to a place where they can be safer. Sometimes you can also use like in the moment redirection strategies. Like, for example, if they're in really high escalation, they're kicking, screaming, they're biting their hand or biting something else, you can just be like, look, there's something over there. Like something that snaps them out completely out of that emotional reaction can work. But other than that, I would continue to stay within those 7 steps of safety, regulation, calm presence, see when they're ready, and then guide them through a different activity.
Cool. I think that's all I got for right now.
So we got, okay, I don't think I see anything on my end, so I think that's it.
Awesome.
All right, thank you everybody. We'll see you next